Hey there, lovely people. Today, I found a new story for you.
Breathtaking. My parents let my freeloading brother live rent-free for years. But when I bought a house, they tried to take it from me. My name is Jacob. I'm 38, single and live alone. My younger brother, Alex, is 35 and already has 5 kids. His first was born when he was 24, and the youngest just a few months ago. He and his wife, Lisa, still live with our parents because of financial problems. Lisa has always been manipulative. She's one of those people who can say the nastiest things with a smile on her face, so if you react, you look like the crazy one. She loves to play the victim, and the worst part is that my parents eat it up every time. No matter what she does, they either don't see it or pretend not to. Meanwhile, I've always been the less favorite child. It's been like this since we were kids. Alex was the golden boy, the one who could do no wrong. I wasn't a troublemaker, but compared to him, I might as well have been invisible. He got praised for the smallest things, and I got lectured for existing too loudly. If he got in trouble, it was somehow my fault. If I accomplished something, it was, well, Alex is younger, so he'll catch up soon. I used to think it would get better as we got older, that maybe once we were both adults, the favoritism would fade. That didn't happen. Instead, Alex knocked Lisa up young, and they kept having kids they couldn't afford. Instead of taking responsibility, they just moved in with my parents, who enabled them every step of the way. They don't pay rent. They don't contribute. And yet, they act like they own the place. Lisa especially. Lisa has this way of making me feel like an outsider in my own family. Every time I visit, she has some new passive-aggressive comment ready. "Oh, Jacob, still single? You must love all that free time." Or, "Wow, must be nice to spend money on yourself instead of diapers." Or the classic, "I bet you don't even know how to hold a baby. Do you?" If I ignore her, she plays it off like she's just joking. If I respond, she gasps and suddenly I'm the villain. My parents rush to defend her, while Alex sits there acting clueless. I try to limit my visits, but our parents guilt me into coming over. Family is everything, they say. Your nieces and nephews need their uncle. Yeah. Then maybe their parents should get their lives together so they can move out of my parents' house. But no one ever says that. Instead, I'm expected to just take it. The thing that really pisses me off is that I worked hard to be independent. I went to college, got a stable job, and made responsible choices. I have my own place, I pay my own bills, and I don't rely on anyone. Alex, on the other hand, made reckless choices, yet he's the one who gets endless sympathy. He has a family to take care of. My mom always says, as if that excuses everything. The reality is, Alex doesn't take care of anything. My parents do. They pay for the house, utilities, groceries, everything. Lisa doesn't work, and Alex's job barely covers his own expenses, let alone 5 kids. If my parents ever stopped supporting them, I have no idea what they would do. But I'm the bad guy for not feeling sorry for them. The last time I visited, Lisa was in rare form. I had barely stepped inside before she started. "Oh, look who finally decided to visit. Must be nice to have so much free time." I forced a smile. "Yeah, well, some of us have to work." Mom immediately shot me a look, but Lisa just grinned. "Oh, of course. Not all of us can be so carefree." I ignored her and went to the kitchen, where Dad was holding the baby. He handed her off to me without asking. "Here, hold your niece. She won't bite." I don't hate kids, but I'm not used to them either. As soon as I took her, she started crying. Lisa, standing nearby, gasped dramatically. "Ah, poor baby. Uncle Jacob just doesn't have the magic touch. Does he?" I handed the baby back to Dad, irritated but trying to keep my cool. "Maybe she just doesn't like strangers." Mom scowled at me. "You're not a stranger. You're her uncle." "Yeah, an uncle who barely gets to see them." Lisa sighed loudly. "Well, we do try to invite you more often, Jacob, but you're always so busy." That was a lie. They never invited me. If anything, I was the one being pressured into visiting. But if I argued, I'd just be starting trouble. So I shut my mouth and sat through dinner, where Lisa continued to make little digs at me. Alex barely said anything the whole time, just focused on his food like none of this was happening. The worst part? I could tell my parents were eating it up. Lisa had them completely wrapped around her finger. After dinner, I made up an excuse to leave early. As I grabbed my coat, Lisa smirked. "Leaving so soon? Back to your quiet little bachelor life." I clenched my jaw but didn't respond. Mom, of course, had to add, "You should come by more often, Jacob. Family is important." I forced a smile and walked out, fuming. As I drove home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. How I had worked so hard to build a stable life, only to be treated like an outsider in my own family. How Lisa, a woman who had contributed nothing, had somehow become the center of everything. And how I was getting really sick of it. Losing my job in 2021 was the beginning of the worst year of my life. I had been working in a mid-level management position for almost 8 years when the pandemic hit, and like millions of others, I was laid off. First, I thought I'd bounce back quickly. I had savings, a decent resume, and a solid work history. But months passed, and every job application either went unanswered or ended in rejection. The job market was brutal, and as my savings dwindled, I had no choice but to let go of my apartment. I tried selling whatever I could. Furniture, electronics, even my car. When it was all said and done, I had just enough left to buy a small trailer for $3,500. It wasn't much, just an old, beat-up thing with a tiny kitchen and barely enough space to stretch out. But it was all I could afford. My plan was simple. I'd park it in my parents' yard, stay there temporarily while I got back on my feet, and then move on once I found a new job. But, of course, nothing is ever that easy with my family. When I called my parents to explain my situation, I expected them to at least offer some support. I wasn't asking to move into the house, just to park in their yard. I even offered to contribute by helping around the house, watching the kids, or paying a little for utilities. Their response? "Oh, Jacob, we just don't have the space for that," Mom said in her usual dismissive tone. I paused, thinking maybe she misunderstood. "It's just a trailer, Mom. I wouldn't be inside the house. We don't have room," she repeated, firmer this time. I almost laughed. No room? Their backyard was massive, plenty of space for a trailer. Not to mention they already had 6 people crammed into the house, but apparently, I was the problem? Then Dad chimed in. "Well, you can park here, but it wouldn't be fair for you to stay for free. You'd have to pitch in, help with expenses." I sighed, already feeling where this was going. "Okay, how much are we talking?" Mom hesitated before answering. $1,500. I nearly dropped the phone. $1,500 a month? To park in your yard? Dad sounded annoyed. "We're not running a charity, Jacob. We have bills to pay, too." I was stunned into silence. They were letting Alex and Lisa live their rent-free, covering their groceries, utilities, everything, and yet I was being charged $1,500 a month for a glorified parking space? I knew arguing was pointless. They had made up their minds, and no amount of logic would change that. So, with no other options, I parked my trailer in random lots, Walmart, grocery stores, anywhere I could find. Some nights, I had to park illegally in places that technically didn't allow overnight stays, hoping I wouldn't get caught. I learned tricks to stay under the radar, keeping the lights off, covering the windows, making sure I didn't attract attention. Electricity was another battle. The trailer had a small generator, but running it constantly drained fuel fast. I got desperate enough to start borrowing electricity from public outlets, outside gas stations, behind buildings, anywhere I could discreetly plug in. I hated doing it, but when it's a choice between keeping your fridge running or letting your food spoil, you do what you have to do. During the day, I'd sit in coffee shops with free Wi-Fi, applying for jobs, trying to make something work. I ate whatever cheap food I could find, mostly gas station sandwiches and instant noodles. Showers were a luxury. I had to use gym memberships, truck stop facilities, or just go without for longer than I'd like to admit. And through all of this, my family never checked in. Not once did my parents call to see how I was holding up. Not once did Alex or Lisa offer to help. Meanwhile, they were living comfortably in a fully furnished home, with my parents paying for everything, acting like I didn't even exist. I was starting to realize just how much of an outsider I really was. 6 months of living in parking lots, barely scraping by, and constantly feeling like a ghost to my own family. Then, finally, things changed. I got a job. It wasn't glamorous, but at that point, I would have taken anything. A small logistics company in a neighboring city needed a warehouse worker, and they were desperate enough to overlook my recent employment gap. The pay wasn't amazing at first, but the overtime was where the real money was. The best part? My boss, a guy named Rick, was the kind of person who actually helped people instead of just pretending to. When he found out I was living in a trailer, he made me an offer. "You can park it in the warehouse lot," he said. "There's a side entrance where you can hook up electricity. Just don't make a mess, and I won't charge you rent." I almost didn't believe it at first. It wasn't much, just a patch of concrete next to the loading dock. But after months of bouncing between parking lots and hoping I wouldn't get fined or towed, it felt like a damn luxury. I had stable power, a safe place to sleep, and even access to the employee bathroom and break room. So I worked hard. I took every overtime shift I could, worked weekends, and barely took a day off. The job itself was tough. Heavy lifting, long hours, and a boss who expected results. But I didn't complain. After everything I had been through, I was just grateful to have a steady paycheck. And little by little, I saved. Took almost 2 years, but eventually I had enough. Not just for a place to rent, but for a home. I found a modular home listed for $290,000. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. 3 bedrooms, a small yard, and enough space for me to park my trailer in the driveway. After living in that tiny thing for so long, I almost didn't know what to do with all the extra space. The day I got the keys, I just sat in the empty living room, staring at the walls, trying to process that this was real. No landlords, no roommates, no waking up in a Walmart parking lot hoping I wouldn't get a ticket. I had built this life from nothing, and no one, not my parents, not my brother, not Lisa, had lifted a damn finger to help. I should have been proud. I was proud. But what I didn't know was that my family was about to suddenly start paying attention to me again. I should have known better than to post about the house on social media. After everything, you'd think I would have learned my lesson. But no, like an idiot, I let my guard down. I was just proud of what I had accomplished, buying a house after losing everything. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, and I wanted to share that moment. So, I posted a few pictures, something simple. Finally moved in. Hard work pays off. That was my mistake. Less than 24 hours later, my phone started blowing up. Not with congratulations, not with "wow, you did amazing," but with demands. First, it was my mom. "Oh, Jacob, we saw your pictures. The house is so lovely. We're coming by to see it tomorrow." Coming by? She didn't ask. She just informed me. I should have said no. I should have shut it down right then and there. But before I could, she added, "Alex and Lisa are coming too. The kids are so excited to see Uncle Jacob's new place." That's when I knew this wasn't just a visit. The next afternoon, I heard cars pulling up outside. Not 1, not 2, but 3 vehicles. My parents, Alex and Lisa, and, of course, all 5 of their kids, tumbling out like an overexcited circus act. I barely had time to open the door before Lisa pushed past me, holding the baby on her hip like some kind of royal decree. "Wow, Jacob," she said, doing that fake, impressed whistle. "This is so nice. And so big. Way too big for just one person. Don't you think?" I clenched my jaw but forced a polite smile. "It's the size I wanted." Mom wandered in behind her, nodding approvingly. 3 bedrooms. "Jacob, this is just lovely." Then she turned to Alex and Lisa. "Isn't this just what you two need?" I froze. Lisa grinned. "Oh, definitely. The kids would love all this space." Alex, as usual, just stood there quietly, hands in his pockets, like he wasn't part of the conversation. But I knew him well enough to know that if Lisa was talking, he agreed. And just like that, I saw where this was going. I tried to change the subject, giving them the quickest possible tour, keeping things vague, but they weren't interested in my explanations about the mortgage, the layout, or even the backyard. Instead, they just kept dropping hints. "Well, You still have your trailer, don't you, Jacob? Lisa asked, strolling through the hallway like she already owned the place. I mean, you lived in it for so long. It's probably super comfortable for you by now. Mom nodded, eyes way too eager. That's true. And the trailer's just sitting in the driveway anyway.
Ist er daher?
Yeah, because I parked it there. Because it's mine. Dad finally chimed in, clapping a hand on my shoulder like he was about to say something reasonable. Spoiler, he wasn't. Son, he said in that dad voice that was supposed to sound wise, but just pissed me off. We were thinking, maybe it's time for you to do something generous for your family. There it was. Lisa didn't even try to hide her smirk. It's so selfish for one person to have all this space when we are still crammed into your parents' house. I wanted to laugh in her face. Selfish? They had been living rent-free off my parents for over a decade, doing nothing to change their situation, and I was the selfish one? I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Let me get this straight. You guys want me to move back into my trailer, in my own driveway, so that Alex and his family can live in my house. Mom gave me that disappointed sigh, the one she used to give me when I didn't do exactly what she wanted. Well, sweetheart, you're used to small spaces, and family is about sharing. Lisa beamed like she thought she had one. It's just logical, Jacob. You're just one person. We have 7. It only makes sense. I felt something inside me snap. For years, I had swallowed their favoritism, their dismissiveness, their blatant preference for Alex. I had taken it. I had let them push me aside over and over again. Not this time. I took a deep breath and smiled. A real, full-teeth smile that made Lisa's own smirk falter just a bit. Then I said, "No." Silence. Lisa blinked. "Wait, what?" "No," I repeated, still smiling. "This is my house. I worked my ass off for it. You're not living here." Mom gasped like I had just slapped her. "Jacob, that is so selfish. Think of your nieces and nephews." "I did," I said, crossing my arms. "And I decided that the best thing for them is for their parents to figure out their own living situation instead of constantly expecting handouts." Alex finally spoke, voice quiet but firm. "Come on, man. We're family." "Yeah? And where was my family when I was living in parking lots?" That shut them up real quick. Lisa's mouth opened and closed, like she wanted to argue, but she had nothing, because none of them had helped me when I was at rock bottom. Not once. Mom recovered first. "Jacob, we didn't know how bad things were." I laughed, actually laughed. "You did know. You just didn't care." And with that, I walked to the front door and held it open. "Visit's over. Time to go." Lisa turned bright red. "You can't be serious." "Dead serious." Alex sighed, rubbing his face like I was the one being difficult, but he didn't fight me. Instead, he just nudged Lisa toward the door, mumbling, "Come on, let's go." Mom and Dad lingered, like they thought they could guilt me into changing my mind, but I didn't budge. Eventually, they all left. I locked the door behind them, leaned against it, and let out a breath. For the first time in years, I finally felt like I had one. The next morning, I got a text from Alex.
"Hey, man.
Can we talk? Just us." I knew what this was about. They weren't done. I debated ignoring him, but I figured I might as well get it over with. Maybe he would be reasonable without Lisa or our parents breathing down his neck. So I told him to come by. He showed up alone, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. I didn't invite him in. Instead, we stood on my front porch, the weight of our family's bullshit hanging between us. "I just wanted to explain," he started, avoiding my eyes. "It's not just Lisa pushing for this, okay? Mom and Dad already told us that you'd do it, that you'd let us move in." I stared at him. "Did I say that?" He sighed. "No, but then why the hell would they promise my house?" He didn't answer that. Instead, he ran a hand through his hair and muttered, "Look, man, I get it. You worked for this place. I respect that." He said it like I was being difficult for not handing over my house. "But you gotta admit, this place is way too big for just one guy. And he hesitated. I'd be way more comfortable living closer to work. I almost laughed. Then get a place closer to work. He blinked, like the thought had never crossed his mind. I folded my arms. Alex, I'm not moving back into my trailer just so you can have my house. His jaw tightened. Come on, man. I have 5 kids. And whose fault is that? That did it. His whole face changed, his usual quiet, passive demeanor cracking. What the hell is wrong with you? You have everything you could need, and you won't even help out your own family? I shook my head.
No.
I built everything I have, and I'm not about to let you or anyone else take it from me just because you refuse to get your shit together. That's when I heard a car door slam. I turned just in time to see Lisa storming up the driveway, Mom and Dad trailing behind her. You knew I was coming to talk to him alone. Alex hissed at her. Lisa ignored him, marching right up to me with her arms crossed. So that's it, she snapped. You're really going to be this selfish? I sighed. Lisa, go home. No, she took a step closer, shoving a finger in my face. You owe us. Mom and Dad took care of you growing up, and now it's your turn to do something for us. I laughed bitterly. You mean the same mom and dad who let me sleep in parking lots? The same mom and dad who charged me $1,500 a month to park in their yard?
Yeah. No.
I don't owe any of you shit. Lisa's face twisted in rage. You're a miserable, selfish bastard. You know that? And then she slapped me. Hard. For a second, I was just stunned. The sting burned across my face, but more than that, I was in shock that she had actually done it. I stepped back, slowly, keeping my voice calm. You hit me again, and I'm calling the cops. Lisa scoffed. Oh, please, like you'd. I pulled out my phone. Her face drained of color. Try me, I said, voice like ice. For a second, she looked like she might do something else. Scream, throw something, who the hell knows. But Alex finally stepped between us. Lisa, let's go. She turned on him, furious. Alex, I said let's go, he repeated, sharper this time. Mom and Dad still stood off to the side, watching, but neither of them spoke up to defend me. Not even after their golden daughter-in-law had just hit me in my own damn driveway. Lisa was still fuming, but she finally turned on her heel and stomped off toward the car. Before Alex followed, he looked at me one last time. We'll be back in a week, he muttered. Then they left. I stood there for a long time after their cars disappeared down the street, my cheeks still burning. And I realized something. They actually believed I would cave. They still thought that if they pushed hard enough, I'd roll over and let them take my house. They were wrong. A week passed. I knew they'd try something. The way Alex had muttered, "We'll be back in a week," wasn't a threat. It was a promise. I just didn't know how far they'd go. Then I came home from work and saw it. Their damn pickup truck was parked in my driveway. For a second, I thought maybe they were just waiting for me. But then I noticed the lights were on inside, curtains drawn, and the biggest red flag? My key didn't work. I tried it again, my heart pounding. They had changed the locks. These motherfuckers. I stepped back, took a deep breath, and pounded on the door. It swung open almost immediately, like they had been waiting for me. Alex stood there, arms crossed, looking smug as hell. Behind him, Lisa was lounging on my couch, scrolling through her phone like she belonged there. What the hell do you think you're doing? I demanded. Alex shrugged. Mom said we could move in. I laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, did she? That's funny. Because Mom doesn't own this house. She said you'd fight it at first, but you'd come around. Lisa piped up from the couch, not even bothering to look at me. We figured it'd be easier if we just got settled first. Settled. They had really moved in. I could see boxes stacked in the hallway. My furniture had been rearranged. There were toys scattered on the floor, like they had wasted no time letting their kids tear through my home. I clenched my fists. You have exactly 2 minutes to start packing before I call the cops. Alex sighed, like I was being unreasonable. Jacob, man, be rational. This house is too big for just you. We're a family. We need it more. Then buy your own damn house. Lisa snorted. Oh, please. Like we could afford that. Not my problem, I shot back. And this sure as hell isn't your solution. Alex's smug expression hardened. Look, we thought you'd be reasonable about this, but if you want to be a dick about it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. We do have a lease agreement. I stared at him. Bullshit. He smirked and handed it to me. I unfolded it. It was a lease agreement, all right. One that claimed I had rented my own house to them for a year, signed by me. Except, it wasn't my signature. They had forged it. These absolute morons had actually gone through the trouble of faking a lease, thinking that would be enough to keep me from kicking them out. I didn't say a word. I just pulled out my phone and started dialing. Alex's smugness cracked. Wait, what are you doing? What does it look like? I said. I'm calling the police. Lisa shot up from the couch. Jacob, don't be dramatic. Oh, I'm past dramatic, I said, stepping back onto my porch. I'm pressing charges. The next 20 minutes were chaos. The cops arrived surprisingly fast. I guess trespassing and breaking into a home is a priority. Alex tried to argue that they had a lease, waving the forged document around like it was some kind of magic shield. The officer took one look at it, then at me. Sir, is this your signature? Nope. I pulled out my ID and some old paperwork with my real signature. The officer compared them, then turned back to Alex. This is forgery, he said. And if the homeowner wants to press charges, that's fraud. Alex's face went pale. Wait, we just tried to steal my house? I cut in. Yeah, I am pressing charges. Lisa lost it. She started screaming about how I was tearing the family apart, how I was a selfish bastard, how I was ruining their kids' lives. Meanwhile, Alex kept stammering, trying to talk his way out of it, but the cops weren't buying it. They were given exactly 1 hour to pack their shit and get out, or they'd be arrested. Lisa threw a massive tantrum, throwing things into boxes, calling me every name in the book. Alex was quieter, more stunned than anything, like he couldn't believe this wasn't going his way. And my parents? Oh, they showed up mid-eviction, crying and begging me to reconsider. Jacob, their family. Mom wailed. You can't do this. I crossed my arms. Watch me. An hour later, they were gone, and I changed the locks again. That night, I sat on my couch, in my home, and finally let myself breathe. They had actually tried to steal my house, and they had failed. For the first time in my life, I had won. A week after the attempted house heist, I got the official word. I had been disowned. Mom called, her voice all wobbly like she had just finished a soap opera crying scene. Jacob, she said, after everything you've done, we can't consider you part of this family anymore. I waited for the sting, the guilt, the crushing sadness. It didn't come. I just sighed. Okay. There was a long pause like she hadn't expected that. Okay? That's all you have to say. What do you want me to say, Mom? Oh no. Please. Let me come crawling back so you can take even more from me? You didn't help your family, she spat. After all we did for you, you turned your back on us. I actually laughed. Mom, when I was homeless, you charged me $1,500 to park in your yard. Silence. Then she hung up. And that was it. I was officially cut off. But here's the funny part. Most of the extended family, they sided with me. Apparently, my parents had been expecting a wave of sympathy when they spread their sob story about their selfish son who kicked his poor brother out. Instead, they got a reality check. My uncle straight up told them, "You raised a lazy mooch and expected Jacob to bail him out. He doesn't owe you a damn thing." One of my cousins commented, "Wait, so you let Alex and Lisa live rent-free for years, but charged Jacob $1,500 just to park? That's messed up." It was glorious. Meanwhile, Alex and Lisa, still exactly where they were before. Still living with my parents, still crammed into that small house with 5 kids, except now the tension was sky-high. Because now, my parents had to deal with their entitlement up close. No more pushing the problem onto me. No more daydreams about dumping them into my house. Just reality. 5 screaming kids, a lazy son, and a manipulative daughter-in-law who was suddenly not so fun to be around. I heard through the grapevine that Lisa and Mom had started fighting. A lot. Turns out my parents loved defending Lisa, but actually living with her nonstop complaining? Not so much. Meanwhile, I got my life back. I started going out with friends again, picked up old hobbies, and finally felt free for the first time in years. No more guilt, no more manipulation, no more forced family visits, where I had to endure Lisa's smug little comments. Just peace. And every night, when I locked the door to my house, I reminded myself, I had earned this, and I wasn't letting anyone take it away.